Hi Arthur, thank you for letting us interview you here. I know you're a very busy man, but finally we got some minutes off of your schedule. So yeah, let's get on with the questions. Tell us a little bit about yourself. There's tons of people really interested on your latest achievements and they would like to know a little bit about you. So tell us, what's your background? How did you become what you are right now?
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for letting me speak to the community. And it's been quite a bit of a journey. I think it's been about 5 years since I created Mamou-Mani Limited and FabPub Limited, which is our design and then fabrication companies. It took a bit of time because I was teaching in parallel, and I think that was very important because parametric design is not something that everyone knows, and it requires a lot of didactic work to explain what it is, what it can do, and it's really interesting to see how the general public react to what they see now as a real style. And it really makes me laugh when I see one of my clients who goes around and say, "Oh, that's parametric, that's parametric," and I see this more and more. So I think it's really interesting.
What's the first memory that you have about parametric design? How did you discover it?
So I worked at Untitled Architects, and at the time we were all using Rhino, and we were scripting within Rhino. It was a really interesting space at the time because I remember people like Mark Forns, Alvin Huang, I could name so many. We were all in the same room down in that studio, and I just remember that we felt quite excited at the potential of using computers, not necessarily as just a tool like, the blackboard. We used to kind of have a blackboard and draw by hand, and then the computer became this. But then at that moment, we were using the computer for its power. We were generating things with the computer. So it was a real shift between just representing with the computer to letting the computer do things.
So what types of work do you do here at your studio? Who's part of your team?
So in our studio we have, let's say, multi-skilled people. We have people that are product designers, architect, but also multimedia designers who can use things like Arduino. And this sort of multidisciplinary aspect of the studio is very important because what we're doing is we're not only designing but also fabricating our pieces. And so therefore it's very important for us to have a whole knowledge of the machines, the software, and so to have a whole, I call it a holistic approach to design.
You've been selected in previous years to contribute to the Burning Man Festival. What does this festival represent to you? What did it take for you to get involved with them?
I remember about 5 years ago, I was working in a practice, and my colleague Toby Burgess called me and say, "Oh, we have this potential job at University of Westminster, and let's sit down and discuss what we could teach." And we sat down and we thought, okay, so parametric design is taught almost as a science. It's fairly dry, as in it doesn't have the human touch to it. It doesn't have what one could call a human parameter to the parametric approach. And we thought, is there a place where it's very interactive, where the architecture is playful, joyful, where you assemble things for real in the real world, as opposed to in the kind of confines of the university. So we thought, okay, let's do it. Let's do Burning Man as the brief. And let's bring the students to build structures there with them. And we thought this would be almost like a boot camp, an parametric architecture boot camp, in which we would build really playful structures with them.
So this year you've been selected as the architect for the main temple. What does this mean to you? What does it represent?
So at Burning Man, you have a city. It's called Black Rock City, and it's got a lot of art. In fact, the whole design of the city is around art. That was the idea. So what's exciting is that not only do you have the art pieces, which we've been building since 5 years with our students and so on, but this year the temple is what the Burning Man calls a municipal building. So, and it's a very special building because it's where people mourn, grief, come and pray for people that they have known, who passed, and so it's a very deep and emotional space, which really contrasts from the rest of Burning Man, which is pretty much a very, very joyful, playful, expressive space. Yeah, so I think it's an important thing to design. It's very humbling because usually it's been someone that I respect a lot called David Best who's been building the temples, and it's very rare that they allow someone external, especially coming from London.
Amazing. So why should people fund you and or donate? There's these huge costs associated with building it. Could you explain a little bit more? What can they get? Just feel free to tell them whatever message you want to send.
So something that is very interesting with Burning Man is that it's not really controlled from the top. You know, it's not really like a top-down city. It's really emerging from the community. What's interesting is that it pushes an entrepreneurial spirit, which is one of the aspects we wanted to teach to our students, how you can get your own project, fund your own project. So why do we need help? Well, one, because like I said, we need that entrepreneurial spirit to finance the project. We have materials, we have infrastructure, we have a massive camp to pay for. And Burning Man really helps us through a grant, a very generous grant. So for this project to happen, it's up to the community. If they like it, you know, if eventually the community doesn't like it, then at least it will reflect. But if people are inspired by it, if they think that this process, if they believe in the journey, then I think, you know, if we only get, say, $2 per people at Burning Man or external people that want to be part of it, then that's all we need.
Okay, and how big is the temple?
The structure is about 60 meters wide, so it's a circular project, and it's quite repetitive in that we have what's called a petal, and it's being repeated 20 times around, and each petal has about 20 of those modules, which themselves are made of little triangles.
So do you see Burning Man as an opportunity to test architectural ideas that later could permeate into the real-life architecture?
100%. I think what's beautiful about Burning Man is that you have a white canvas, right? An empty canvas on which you build things that are maybe less regulated than in the everyday architectural world. Not just kind of use regulation, but also it's infused with a sense of freedom and playfulness. You know, the idea of interactive structures, the fact that you can climb them. Nothing is unclimbable. There's no real wall. Everything is inclusive, you know.
Was there a spiritual influence into this? Do you think it plays an important factor into how buildings are designed for this festival?
I mean, the spiritual question is essential if it's a temple. I think what's interesting for me personally is that I don't have a religion. I have a Jewish father and a Catholic mom. I was raised with both religion, but without being one of this religion. So it's an interesting concept for me to think of not necessarily religion, but spirituality. To me, the idea of believing, of having faith, of having something that drives you is essential. I mean, it's something that we all need because we need reasons to wake up in the morning. We need things that pushes us. But those don't have to be religious, but they could definitely be described as spiritual. So, saying this, the temple was a reflection of our inner spirituality, but I didn't want to separate it from our scientific knowledge.
What does your design workflow look like?
It's very, let's say, non-linear. So what do I mean by that? It's not like an idea suddenly drops in the brain and then I draw it and then, I pass it on to someone else. I would say that's probably how people see the job of an architect. But in my case, I can't speak on behalf of all architects, but in my case, ideas are things that you go and grab. So I tend to say that the process is more like a gardener, maybe less like a sculptor. But there are other seeds in my brain, and those seeds are based on either kind of getting to know the software, getting to know mathematics, getting to know algorithms, getting to know materials, getting to know machines. And that process of iteration really is going hand in hand with the materialization of the project.
So currently, which one's the software that you use the most for your projects?
We use Rhinoceros a lot, together with Grasshopper. And the reason being is that it really allowed us to be quite precise with our sketches. So what I really like about this tool is that, one, you have an interface in which you can be very free, just like a sketch, but a mathematically controlled sketch, using NURBS curves and things that are based on the automobile industry, so fairly precise and linked to the real world, the fabrication world. But then you also have Grasshopper, which is then a way to integrate mathematical formulas and things that are maybe harder to just draw by hand. They're rule-based, they're mathematical based, and so for me, the transition from hand drawings to a controlled model is really the great workflow between Rhino and Grasshopper.
Where do you hope to see parametric design in the future? What challenges should be conquered first in order to be adopted more widely?
I think one is to show the potential and versatility of parametric design and how it can be linked with the tools that architects can use to fabricate their structures. I think the disassociation between the form and the material is something that can lead to a real issue in which architects just do things in the computer and then the contractor does something else in reality. It ends up with very pricey projects. So I really hope that the link between, let's say, the digital and the physical will sort of really merge somehow. And I hope so even more that architects will be involved in the construction that they design, and I really hope that we could go back to an age a bit like the cathedrals, in which you had what we call the master builders, where the designers, the contractor, the engineers were, let's say, on the same boat.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time. You can follow Arthur. I'm gonna link all the important information. If they want to send you an email or something, how can they get in touch with you?
We have a website, Mamou-Mani.com, which links to all our accounts, Instagram and Facebook, and you have a contact form there, info@Mamou-Mani.com. I find it so important to discuss with everyone, and I'll be if I can, I'll be the first one to answer and interact, and I think we should all do that. And this approach is collaborative. It requires many brains, many ideas. So please just talk to me.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.